Today, the social housing crocodile tears. Hello again, it's Martin North from Digital Finance Analytics. Welcome to the latest post covering finance and property news with a distinctively Australian flavour. Well, The Guardian published a very important article over the weekend, and it really called out something which I've been watching for some time, and that is that under the neoliberal philosophy, social housing and public investment in housing is an anathema. In fact, let the market rip, and if people fall off the back of the lorry, well, who cares? Now, The Guardian says the New South Wales government has sold off $3 billion worth of social housing during its decade in power, while failing to meet its own targets for new properties. New figures released through Parliament this week showed that since it was first elected in 2011, the coalition has sold off 4,205 social housing properties across the state, and the sales have added about $3.5 billion to the government's coffers over the same period. But while the government said all of those funds were used to prove, quote, more and better social housing stock, data for new social housing constructions reveal the government has fallen well behind its own targets for new dwellings. In 2016, the coalition pledged to build 23,000 new social housing dwellings in the next decade as part of its Future Directions housing strategy. And it committed to funding new social housing construction through the $22 billion Communities Plus program. But 8 years on, with more than 50,000 people on the social housing wait list in the state, the Communities Plus program has achieved only 10% of that goal. According to written answers provided by the government, only 2,393 social housing properties were completed under the program between 1 July 2016 and 31 December 2021. Other types of housing have also failed to make a dent in the government's target. The figures provided by the government show that under the same program, only 101 new affordable housing dwellings have been constructed since 2016. The government has spruiked a series of other social housing developments currently in the pipeline, including the Ivanhoe estate at Macquarie Park in the city's northwest. It's expected to deliver about 950 social housing and 128 affordable housing properties. Similar long-mooted plans to redevelop the Waterloo South Public Housing estate will see about 847 social housing properties constructed, about 100 more than are currently on the site, as well as 227 affordable housing dwellings. The government said that it increased the number of social homes across the state by 10% since it came to power, though much of that stock is managed by community housing providers. It also conceded that because projects funded under the Communities Plus require major redevelopments and extensive relocations, and as such are particularly complex, the construction of developments such as Waterloo were taking some years to complete. But a spokesperson from the Department of Planning said that some 7,282 new social homes had been delivered under the program as at June last year. LAHC delivered or committed 545 affordable dwellings by last financial year, already above the Future Directions 2026 target of 500, the spokesperson said. And the Department of Communities and Justice, as at the 28th of February 2022, also funded 2,901 new social and affordable homes across New South Wales through the Social and Affordable Housing Fund. LAHC's Strategic Asset Recycling Program identifies ageing housing that's sold to fund the supply of more new fit-for-purpose social housing. Every dollar generated from a property sale goes back to LAHC to deliver more and better social housing for people in need. But the government has faced criticism for failing to require a larger share of overall social housing in both of those projects. Because the government requires the Land and Housing Corporation, the body responsible for managing social housing, to be predominantly self-funded, its major social housing redevelopments funded under Communities Plus employ a 70-30 mix of private and public housing. And this week, the Sydney Lord Mayor Clover Moore blasted what she called the tragedy of failing to secure more social housing in the Waterloo estate in the midst of the state's housing crisis. We've got a housing crisis in Sydney, and if we can't have social housing on publicly owned sites, where are we going to have it? Moore said. Labour's shadow housing minister, Rose Jackson, has also criticised the government's argument that social housing sales are redirected into new construction, saying that the claim had been completely debunked by the failure to meet its own social housing targets. This isn't about delivering new housing, it's about selling off valuable government assets to make money for the budget bottom line, she said. The figure topped $3 billion for the first time, shows there was no slowing down in New South Wales government public housing privatisation agenda. She said it was appalling. The government had continued to sell off its social housing during the housing crisis. And I have to say that I think they do have a point. So 2 comments. The first is that if you let neoliberalism rip, then of course you're going to let the markets determine the mix. And that means more private sales to private businesses to make a profit. And of course, in the process, New South Wales government will also take lots of fees for redevelopment. And in the meantime, the housing crisis that does exist in New South Wales, particularly in around Sydney and as well in the regions, continues. And with rents going through the roof as they are now, more people are going to be unable to find anywhere to live. So we need a change of philosophy, a change of approach, but unfortunately neither party in the upcoming election seems to want to step out from just doing the same old, which is under the neoliberal banner, let the markets rip. Unfortunately, when you let the markets rip like this, people get caught in the crossfire, and many people remain homeless and in poverty. And that is a social problem that we should also be concerned about, and not just talk about it, but also do things differently to take it away. I'm Martin North from Digital Finance Analytics. Many thanks for watching, and I'll see you again next time.